Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And this week, we're going to talk about something, well, we got a lot of cool things specifically we're going to talk about, but overall, we're going to talk about something that everyone can use, and that is not only solutions, right? I always tell my kids, you got a problem, I got a solution, right? Sometimes they don't like the solution. Nonetheless, we're talking about not just solutions, not just good solutions, not just great solutions. We're talking literally about badass solutions, okay? And so our guest this week is going to be, it's going to be great. I can't wait. We were talking before the show here. Today we welcome Mitch Francis, who has an extensive 40-year, can't be 40 years, it must be a typo here, business career where he created and was CEO of several publicly traded and private companies. Definitely want to dive into that a bit. He also developed and continues to own and manage commercial real estate throughout the U.S., including, he mentioned a place in Ohio here where producer Alan and I are based. He says the problem solving skills, easy for me to say, he developed through a lifetime in business allowed him to tackle many of the biggest problems that our society today faces. His solutions are so innovative, doable, and exciting that he wrote a fabulous book called Badass Solutions. If you're watching, if you guys are watching the video, you can see it in the background. He's got it displayed there. And so, Mitch, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Ken. It's great to be with you.
Yeah. So before we dive into all that, so there's a whole bunch of different things. We definitely, I'm gonna test Mitch a bit later in the show on, okay, we can talk about badass solutions, but give me he's got some big, giant problems in the US that he's got badass solutions for. And we're going to dive into those, as well as tease you a little bit here. He also, for, I believe, 28 years, was it Mitch? 28 years, he was CEO of the largest ticket broker in Las Vegas. It's got to be some cool stuff there too. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get into all that though, Mitch, let me backtrack. Talk to me about your journey, your entrepreneur journey, your career journey. Again, 40 years. If you're watching on video, I don't know. You must have been drinking out of the fountain of youth or something, Mitch. I don't know, but God bless you on that.
Well,
but tell us about your journey.
No, I'm an old guy.
I wouldn't know it from watching the video, and I'm not just patronizing you. You look great.
Thanks. Well, I grew up in Colorado, in Denver, and of course I was a skier. I was actually a professional skier.
Oh wow, okay.
I went to the University of Colorado, and they were actually one of the first couple universities in the United States that offered a real estate major. And that's what I did. I was a real estate major, University of Colorado, and you can just picture me studying on the chairlifts.
So, or maybe not studying on the chair. How did you balance your adult beverage of choice with the book while you're studying on the chair?
Well, the adult beverages had to take a back seat to skiing and studying, unfortunately. But I taught skiing on weekends and holidays while at University of Colorado, and as a matter of fact, kind of a departure. While I was teaching there on weekends, there was a huge whiteout snowstorm. You literally couldn't see in front of you. And there was this kind of frozen figure in my way. And I was thinking, oh this woman, it was clearly a woman, and she's like in trouble. She's just like frozen there. And I skied up to her and, to help her get down. And she says I saved her life, and she had to marry me. And we've been married over 40 years.
Well, that's an awesome story. I mean, if there's different ways to land some ladies and land a wife, and I mean that's the most innovative way I think I've ever heard, Mitch.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Skiing whiteouts and look for a damsel in distress.
I mean, you want to talk about the rule of reciprocity? I mean, hello.
She owes me. She's not even begun to pay me back.
So from Colorado and being a professional skier, teaching on the weekends, etc. Where do we go from there?
So I moved to Los Angeles upon ending school, and I went to work as a commercial real estate broker. And something really interesting happened there. Right away, I closed 3 transactions very, very quickly. And one of the pool secretaries for the office was congratulating me. It was pretty unusual. And I was kind of humble, and I said, I was just in the right place at the right time. And she got angry at me. She said, "No, that's not it." It's like, "What are you talking about?" I couldn't believe she was angry. And she said, "It's not about being in the right place at the right time. It's knowing you are."
Oh,
And
okay, interesting.
that was still to this day the most intelligent thing that anybody's ever said to me. And I've taken that through my business life and found that there are opportunities that pass us all. It's like we're standing in a river and there are fish coming at us, and it's recognizing what's an opportunity here. What's going to work for me? What's going to be successful? What am I right for? And it was maybe kind of obvious, but just having that knowledge of look for opportunities, take advantage of them if they're the right ones. I lived by that, and I've been very successful, really, because of that. We're going to talk about. I know you're interested in this in the Vegas ticket business, and I'll tell you how that came about, and is exactly that kind of story. So from real estate brokerage, I did quite well very quickly, and I kind of learned the ropes of development because I sold a lot of land to other developers, and I would do the analysis for them. I would work the numbers. I did the pro formas, and had some proof of concept. Like I wasn't completely off base. I had an idea of what I was doing, and I started my own development company just a couple years later. And we developed office buildings and shopping centers, a few condominium projects, and that lasted quite a while. And then business kept evolving and into other different business opportunities, and it kind of went on to Las Vegas, and some business opportunities opened there, and I found that there's a Disney show, a Disney ride called Star Tours. And I was shocked that I was willing to stand in line twice in the same day to go on this ride. And I was in Vegas for a business deal, and found that somebody put this motion simulator attraction in one of the hotels. And I was just like shocked. And I saw it as, here's a Disney quality ride that you could take on the road. And I thought, wow, this speaks to my expertise. I could know where to put this thing. And I thought it was fantastic. And I actually went into that business.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and going back, I mean, that guidance advice you got from the admin, I mean, I've literally never heard that. You hear people right place, right time all the time, right? But I've never heard someone frame it in that context. And if you really think about it, it's so true. And clearly you mentioned you've used it throughout your career. And I think for a mindset thing, I mean, I'm literally, I wrote it down. Like I'm going to really start to think about things like that. So we're out of time here. We're going to hit a break, come back. We're going to find out more about this ticket broker business in Vegas. I'm sure there's some good stuff there. And then we're also talk about the idea behind this book, Badass Solutions.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@mrbizsolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. And again, we're talking this week with Mr. Mitch Francis. And so, Mitch, we talked about your journey, your career, things like that. We kind of scratched on the surface a little bit of this, but I am curious to ask you, and I'm sure you could talk for days about this, but I can't imagine what it's like running the largest ticket broker in Las Vegas, of all places. Like, not St. Louis, Missouri, not, Poughkeepsie, Las Vegas. I mean, and tickets out there and all the shows. What was that like? I mean, first of all, how'd you get into it? And second of all, what was that like? Like, I can't even imagine how voluminous that is and how challenging that would be in a place like Vegas.
Yeah, it is, and it was. But it kind of goes back actually to what we talked about earlier about being, opportunities flooding by us. There's a ticket booth in Times Square in New York. Mm-hmm. And they're very famous. It's called TKTS, and they open at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they sell the unsold tickets for that night's plays. Yep. And they're incredibly popular. Like every day before they open at 3 o'clock, there's a line down the street that's like, honestly, two or three blocks long. And I was familiar with them as a customer. Mm-hmm. And let's fast forward to, I was working in Las Vegas. I was doing this. We had a business called for 3D motion simulator attractions, and we had them all over the country and in Canada. And we were operating this business and actually selling our own tickets. And at one point I said, for marketing, why don't we, see if we can sell tickets at the half price booth here? And it was, well, Vegas doesn't have that. I went, doesn't have that? It was just so obvious to me, that this same idea.
How come no one, I'm sure you're thinking the same thing I'm like, no one picked up on that. No one from Vegas in business had been to New York and seen the same thing.
But they of course had. Ken, that's what I'm saying. These opportunities pass all of us, and it's like, what to grab? That's an opportunity. And I thought, this is nuts. Vegas is the exact model of New York's theater business in a small area, lots of different shows, clearly lots of empty seats every night. Mm-hmm. Why hasn't this been done? And I actually spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out, well, why hasn't this been done? Is there must be some barrier to entry? Like
right. What are you missing? Right.
Yeah. Is there some code in the city, an ordinance that doesn't allow it? Are do the hotels not allow it? Do the show producers, don't want to do they not want to do this? Yeah. And after, several months of really asking around and finding this out, it's just, there was no barrier. It's just that nobody had ever done it. And I said, all right, well, we're going to do it. And we started a business. And we went around to the producers. There were about 60 shows every day at that time. It grew to like 100, but none of the producers would work with us. They were actually afraid that we were going to hurt their full price ticket business.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of objections, and it literally took me 2 years just to get 12 shows to try it. And I had to say, listen, you can cancel anytime. You can do it one day and never work with us again. If we're impacting your full price sales, don't work with us. So finally, 12 shows agreed to try it. And we opened, and just like New York, I'm not kidding, Ken, we had a line down the street, just opening the door.
Right.
And it, in fact, never ended. That we had those show producers said it did not impact their full price ticket sales. This was all additive. So we were getting people, we were getting people who weren't going to go to a show. But they decided to go to a show because they could get a ticket for half price. It was amazing. And we kept building and building and getting the better and better shows. And we became at least for a period, we became the #1 ticket broker in Las Vegas. We ended up actually selling $1 billion of show tickets and attractions and tours and dining reservations. It was a very, very successful business.
Wow. Yeah. And I can imagine too, because the shows couldn't see the forest through the trees initially, right? The producers. But I think the word of mouth that even those smaller shows that maybe you started with is when people get in there, even if they bought a half price ticket, they get in and you're filling in those unsold seats, right? That would have been empty otherwise. And all of a sudden the audience gets in, and I'm sure a lot of people do the same thing. I go to a concert and I look around and be like, man, there's a lot of empty seats here. That's not very good. Whereas they're going in and they're looking around and like, man, this place is packed. And so that word of mouth,
that makes a difference.
This is a hot show. You need to get into this. This is a hot show.
Right. That makes a difference. Having a full theater, the audience is happier. They're not questioning, oh, is this really a bad show I'm sitting in? And it invigorates the performers too. It's like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And taking that a step further, I would think that actually helps their full price sales, right? Because especially, and I know this was a while back, but especially in today's day and age of social media, and people are posting all this like, oh my gosh, I went to the such and such show and it was jam packed. It was, oh man, when I go to Vegas next month, I need to make sure I get to the show, because if everyone was there, this must be like the hot show to see, that kind of thing. And they don't want to wait for half price tickets. They're going to like, I got to get in because this thing's going to sell out.
That's a really smart point. It did work that way on the top shows. It did. You're right, Ken.
Yeah. Well, look, we only got a couple minutes left here, but I do want to so the idea behind this book. So you have got all this experience, and I know, again, this is something you could talk about a long time. I didn't leave you very much time here, but what was the idea? What all of a sudden you went, I got all these badass solutions. I need to write a book about this. What kind of prompted that?
Well, unfortunately, it was from a family tragedy. You may remember.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thanks. 2 years ago, at a 4th of July parade on a suburb of Chicago, a crazed young man with assault rifles killed 7 people at a 4th of July parade. And one of the people killed was my brother-in-law's brother. Oh. And as you can imagine, the family was just devastated. This was a great guy, just a terrific guy. And the family was devastated. And I kind of left, beside being, pained for everybody, I left pissed. And I said, what is going on? We have all of these problems in our country that are big ass problems, and nobody's doing anything to solve them. And I kind of took stock of myself, and I said, so many of these ideas, I've kind of always been a news hound. It's always been, interesting to me about what's going on in the world. And for many of these things, I have this idea, well, why don't they just do that? That would fix this. Or why don't they just do that? And I decided to write an outline, because I had all these different possible, at least beginning solutions. And I wrote an outline down, and I finished it. I went, you know what? This is nuts. This is a book. I had no intention of writing a book. And that was a little over 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's great because, with your experience, your vast experience in different types of industries as well, different geographies, different places around the country. I can imagine, I do the same thing, although I'm probably not nearly at your level, but I do the same thing. Is like, man, why don't they just do this? Or why don't they just do that? Yeah. We got to hit a break here, guys. Again, I'm talking with Mitch Francis this week. You can find out more. We'll put this in the show notes as well. His website is bad-asssolutions.com. Make sure you get that right, or you might end up on the wrong website. I'm just saying. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about two badass solutions to big problems in the United States.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show, guys. And as I've said at the outset, if you've been listening the whole time or watching the whole time, Mitch talks about, he's a big talker. Okay, Mitch, I'm gonna come down on you a little bit here. I'm hearing about badass solutions. I'm gonna call you on a couple of these things. So I know there's a couple things in the book, and I want to make sure we touch on these. The first thing I want to talk about, which is near and dear to my heart, and I actually did a video about this, like a 3 or 4 minute video, so nothing like what you have in the book, but about the United States federal debt and what it looks like, where it's going, where it's headed, how can we get out of this, how do we solve it? You, my friend, Mr. Francis, have a badass solution for this. Please tell me, and let me get my pen ready here to take some notes.
You got it. Well, like you said, let me give you kind of the rough points of our problem. The U.S. is $35 trillion in debt, and it's growing by another $1 trillion every 100 days.
Yep.
We are literally drowning in our debt and interest payments. Interest payments right now are more of an expense of the federal government than our military. I mean, we've dug a hole that we cannot get out of, Ken, by politicians saying, well, we'll raise taxes, while they're saying, well, we're going to lower taxes. But if they raise taxes, it wouldn't get us out. If they cut spending, it wouldn't get us out. The size, the $35 trillion is actually 7 times the total revenue to the federal government annually from taxes.
Right.
So,
and a lot of people don't realize that. I'm glad you're framing it, Mitch, because I looked at this as well. And I think a lot of people don't realize, you hear the number, especially when it starts with a T, and you go, man, that's a big number.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable to almost anyone unless you normally work with numbers.
Right.
You don't even because how often do you hear trillion, anything? Billion is like, holy crap. Trillion? I mean, so I'm glad you're kind of framing in that context.
Well, something, I have a really good tool for how big is that. So 1 million seconds passes in 11 days. 1 billion seconds takes 32 years. And 1 trillion seconds is 32,000 years. That's how big these numbers are.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so we have all these politicians running around and, with their hair on fire saying, the U.S. is bankrupt. The U.S. is bankrupt. What are we going to do here? How are we going to solve this? And we're all sitting there. Yeah, that's your job. Solve this thing. And it doesn't. Nobody's doing anything about this. And we can. I've actually developed a pretty shockingly simple solution to pay off the entire U.S. debt immediately and ensure that it never happens again. And let me just throw something to you that you don't have to answer, kind of a test question, and your audience, to say, well, if we're bankrupt, how is it possible that the United States has the most successful, biggest economy in the world? If we're bankrupt, we're actually 30% bigger than China. We're 15.5 times bigger than Russia.
Right.
And the next question is, well, if we're bankrupt, how is it possible that U.S. treasuries are the safest investment in the world? This makes no sense. And the reality is that all of us, in our guts, without really even thinking about it, Ken, we know that the U.S. is so strong, is so powerful, and actually so valuable that it can't default on its debts. It's safe. So it triggered something in me to say, through most of our history, the U.S. operated on something called the gold standard. And that ended in the Nixon administration. But when the gold standard existed, the concept was that the U.S. had assets, gold, in Fort Knox, and it could write actually not write, but print checks, print dollar bills to put into the US economy. As long as there was gold in back of it, the paper had value. And for a time, it was even possible for US citizens to exchange their dollar bills for gold. It was that equal. Well, the gold standard ended, and I think that was really the beginning of Congress deficit spending.
Yep.
But
I agree.
When I looked at this through the eyes of correct accounting policy, I'm looking at this.
But Mitch, hold on. That's crazy. What are you talking about? Correct accounting policy? Why would we do that as a government? Jeez Louise.
It's crazy. So if we looked at this like a business, like the US is a business, well, we don't only have assets that are gold. You know, the US has vast lands and mineral reserves and gas reserves and oil and ships and planes and buildings and military installations and hospitals and schools. And the US has assets that on any accounting basis are worth many, many times more than our gold reserves.
Yeah.
So I came up with this idea. Well, let's have the asset. Let's have not the gold standard. Let's have the asset standard, and say, well, the U.S. has all of these assets behind us. We're going to just print checks. We're going to pay all of the people who've loaned money to the U.S. in treasury notes. We're going to send a check for $1 trillion to China and say, thank you very much for loaning us money. We're paying it back.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, what will they do? Will they deposit the check? And the answer is damn right. They and your Aunt Betty will run to the bank and deposit their checks, and they will clear because they're drawn on the Federal Reserve Bank. And as long as that happens, we just paid off our entire debt. Now, I believe if you give that kind of ability to our Congress, they'll go crazy. Any more than paying off our debt and maybe funding our unfunded or underfunded programs like Medicare and Social Security, things like that.
Yep.
Pay it off one time, and then have literally a constitutional amendment that prohibits the federal government from excess spending, and they have to have a balanced budget. They can't spend more than they bring in taxes. There you go.
I love it. So real quick, and I know we're running out of time here, and I got one more thing I want to mention about that's in the book, but funny enough, I was on X. This was leading up to the election recently, and Kamala Harris came out with their economic policy. Actually did a show on the economic policies of both candidates and the viability of each and all that kind of stuff. And so during the show, I mentioned Kamala Harris had all these different things about more money. I'm going to give you money for this and money for that and money for this. And Trump has them as well. But what I mentioned was, I said, okay, so we're going to do this. And if half the people take advantage of it, was the $50,000 in tax breaks for startup businesses. And she wanted to start, I forget numbers now, I think it was 25 million new businesses in her first term. And so I multiplied out. I'm like, that's going to cost, I forget what the number was. It was in the trillions though.
Trillions.
And so I said, how's that going to get paid for? Or is there going to be new taxes? Or what are we cutting? And funny enough, Mitch, not funny, I got feedback and people were like, clearly you don't know how the government works. Like, no, you don't have to worry about where the money's coming from. I'm like, yeah, you do. That's our freaking problem. Okay, I'll shut up now. But I did want to mention, there's another thing in the book here. We've only got 20 seconds or so left, but there's a bunch of different things. But one of the things I wanted to cover, but I talked too much and we got going here, but about global warming. So another relatively simplistic, easy to implement thing to solve the global warming crisis we have. I wanted to mention that as well. And there's a bunch of other things. You guys got to check out this book, Badass Solutions. You can go to bad-asssolutions.com as well. Mitch, we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Ken, you're great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.